But it's important to understand exactly what's happening, right? Because this may sound, okay, it may make sense, but I'm still afraid to do it. What is going to happen really to my body? Is it safe? If it's not safe, I mean, I'm going to starve and people will scare you if you try to do it. So it's important to understand what is happening, and I hope I can explain you better. So looking at our cell and going back a little bit maybe to our times in school, there's these organelles called the lysosomes. And these organelles, what they do is that they digest they digest things inside the cell, materials inside the cell. And they're usually taking their time digesting things that we're eating, so they don't have time to digest anything else. But the truth is, when it's normal from the toxic lives that we live, that we form materials inside our cell that are not fully functional, or for example, it's normal that our mitochondria, when they're exposed to not good environments, they will not be functioning properly. And what happens is that usually our body gets rid of those cellular organelles that are not functioning properly. So the caloric restriction is the only documented way to upregulate intracellular cleansing, which means that besides what we eat, and now we have time to dedicate to what's happening inside the cell, we're going to start to clean our own cells. Like I said, the lysosomes will do that because they are usually very busy breaking down food and cleaning up other intracellular wastes. And finally, when we don't eat food and they are not so busy doing that, they start to digest damaged organelles. And organelles are the nucleus, are the mitochondria and other organelles within the cell. So the nucleus will not happen, but it's important to actually recycle our mitochondria. And so this is what happens inside our cells. And this is a very good demonstration. So the cell forms kind of a membrane that will encapsulate the organelle that it's not functioning well. And in this image, you can see that membrane is encapsulating a mitochondria. And mitochondria are the organelles that produce energy inside our cells. And actually, when these mitochondria are not functional or not in number enough, or not behaving normally, that usually leads to cancer. So that's the importance of these mitochondria. So if they're not functioning well, we want to get rid of them before something more chronic sets up. So this membrane that develops within the cell will encapsulate the mitochondria in what's called an autophagosome. And then the lysosomes, but that we talked before, will come into that kind of encapsulation, and they will drop their acid hydrolases that will digest the organelle, and then there's the breakdown and the degradation of these organelles. And that's how our cells clean themselves. And this is a very essential process. And it's a process that if you're eating all the time, it won't happen, or it won't happen as much. It still happens when you sleep. And that's why often Dr. Lodi says that sleep is even more important than what you eat, because when you sleep well, you will trigger these processes and then you will eat more properly. So fasting pushes cell to this process and allows the degradation and recycling of cellular components. This is the only way for our cells to repair their structures. So this is the importance of this process. It's the only way that our cells will repair themselves. And now look at your environment. How many toxicants are you exposed daily? Since the sheets and the bed and the mattress that you're laying on that have chemicals on them. Then you go, you take your shower and the water may have chlorine on it. Then you use your products and your products have chemicals on them. You brush your teeth and you get fluoride. And maybe you have your router on and you are exposed to EMF radiation. all of these things create damage in ourselves. We're not aware of it because it's inside of our body, but it creates damage. So if this is the only way that we can repair them, then we need to allow our body to do it. Healthy cell structures result in an anti-inflammatory environment. And this is what we want. Inflammation equals disease. So we need to clean out our cells. Again, here it's another very good explanation of what happens with autophagy. And it's a crucial defense mechanism against malignancy, infection, and neurodegenerative diseases. So our bodies and nature, God, or whatever you want to call it, didn't make mistakes. Everything that happens within our body is a reaction to something within the environment. So if you're not hungry when you're sick, it's because your body is telling you it needs time to heal and to focus on these processes. So really allow yourself to heal. And it's good, it prevents degenerative diseases, cancer, it enhances your immune system, it reduces infectious diseases, it helps with type 2 diabetes or reverses type 2 diabetes. Fortunately, it's not a chronic disease, it's something that is reversible. So it's super important. What are the main benefits of this process? Elimination of senescent cells. So even sometimes it's not the organelles, but the cells themselves that are old and damaged cells, and our body, the best way to deal with them is not wasting energy in repairing them, but just getting rid of them. So it's just cleaning out, letting go of the cells that are not longer needed. And this is what happens with cancer. Cancer has processes that stop these elimination of cells, and that's dangerous. So when we have this elimination is good. Eliminate viral infected cells. And again, in the spectrum of the coronavirus, this is super important. So your body will recognize that those cells are infected and it will get rid of them. It degrades damaged organelles, cell membranes, and proteins. Reduce cell apoptosis. So if the cell repairs itself, then it doesn't need to destroy as many cells as it would have to if they are not repairing. So there's not so much need to destruction, which leads to less metabolic waste and reduced inflammation, because there's not so much waste within your cells and within your blood even. Improve mitochondrial health. And again, mitochondria are super important. They are the power plants of our body where we produce energy. So you will feel more energetic when you do not eat. And prevent cellular degeneration because it's repairing the cells. And in all, it will give you a stronger and more resilient body and mind. So again, for these types of environments when we are exposed to not just a pandemic, but news, fake news, a lot of information and confusing information, having a strong, not just body, but mind is super important. Now, in everything in life, there's potentially negative side effects. And again, they are not transverse to everyone. You may have some, you may have none, you may have all. You may have headaches, dizziness, mental fog, and lethargy. And this usually it's because you're not getting enough electrolytes. And that's why I recommended to add 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of salt a day when you drink your water. Some people may develop diarrhea, and this is just a cleansing process of the body too. And sometimes people want the body to behave unnaturally. They want everything to be normal. But when the body is getting rid of so much toxic waste that we have, it's natural that you get diarrhea. But you can try to prevent it by adding some psyllium husk. And this is more, not when you're doing a complete water fast, because this would add calories, but on the other types of fasting, you can do that. Constipation, of course, if you're not eating, you may suffer for some constipation. But actually what I notice is when people eat less frequently, their bowels will move better. So, but what we can do is just drink more water, exercise, or even do some colonics. Some people have insomnia or feeling of anxiety, and this is because your brain actually, it's more hardwired. So you probably will feel that you're more present, that you're more aware, more focused, and sometimes when it's time to sleep, you're still very energetic because you're not used to it. You may experience acid reflux, so 1 or 2, 3 tablespoons, 1 to 3 tablespoons of lemon juice or raw unfiltered apple cider vinegar will usually help with this. And again, this is for those that are doing intermittent fasting or when you're eating, not on a water fast. And another common side effect would be bad breath, but again, a good oral hygiene should really help with this. Drinking more water, do some oil pulling, or even tongue scraping. And very important, who should not fast? Okay, so fasting is not for everyone, although it brings a lot of health benefits. People who are significantly underweight or cachectic. So patients, for example, who have cancer may not be advisable to do a water fast, or people who are very underweight. People with type 1 diabetes, they may still get benefits, really recommended to do it under doctor supervision. Women who are pregnant or breastfeeding should avoid it. They can still do some types of time-restricted eating with a broader window, maybe 8 hours of eating. Under 18-year-old, there's a possibility of doing this, but again, under medical supervision. People who are struggling to gain weight, obviously, they should avoid fasting. People who have eating disorders, this is super important. Fasting can aggravate eating disorders, so I completely don't advise it. If you're taking certain medications, you should get your doctor's recommendation on this. And extreme athletes in season, because it may, obviously, especially if people are not used to do it, it may impact their athletic performance. And like St. Augustine said, fasting cleanses the soul, raises the mind, subjects one's flesh to the spirit, renders the heart contrite and humble, scatters out concupiscence, quenches the fire of lust, and kindles the true light of chastity. Enter again into yourself. So I would highly recommend each and every one of you to fast. And it may seem complicated at first, but it becomes very simple, and it's basically just don't eat and drink water. So now that you understand fasting, it's much easier to understand eating, okay? Because the first step of learning how to eat is learning how not to eat. So can eating be that complicated? Why is there so much confusion around eating? I don't think it's complicated at all. And actually, I think you're going to understand that once we finish the presentation. So here's some basics of healthy eating, and I try to share them with everyone, and we apply them to our patients here at an Oasis of Healing. And they take these advices home, and it's very effective. So you do 2 to 3 meals a day, and that's it. Ideally, we even say 2 meals a day, and possibly even 1 meal a day. So, and that meal can last maybe around 2 hours. It's not you sit and eat in 10 minutes. No, it should be something with time, with love, and dedication. Whole food, plant-based. So very simple, whole foods, unprocessed foods, and plant-based. So use plants as much as you can. As much as you can, also raw foods. So try not to cook your food as much as you do. And I know, especially in Asia, people are used to eating almost everything cooked, but try to eat more raw foods. Vegans, so trying to avoid animal products. There's a lot of reasons behind this. And again, I could do a full presentation on it, but just try to restrict the animal consumption. Organic, because we know the importance of that eating clean foods has in our system. So all of your cells, the membranes in your cells, your organelles are made from the nutrients and the components, the macronutrients you get from food. So if those macronutrients are loaded with chemicals from glyphosate and other chemicals they use on crops, then that's what's going to be the building blocks of your cells. So you basically building yourself to be sick.
Wow.
Try to eat locally and in season. So if you live in Asia, try to, or in Thailand, or here in the United States, try to get your food that is locally grown and it hasn't traveled half the world, and that is in season. So don't try to eat maybe guavas out of season, or don't try to import products that you don't have or to eat them, because you'll be supporting your local farmers and markets, and you're supporting also your immune system and your gut microbiome, which is super important. But again, that's another topic. And I say here, use the rule of 80-20 or 70-30. What does this mean? The 80 is trying to follow all of these things. So whole food, plant-based, raw, vegan, organic, local, and in season. And then the 20 or 30% would be the exceptions. So if you're having some cooked food or some animal food, make it the exception and not the rule. This is basic, like avoid processed and junk food. Dr. Lodi mentioned that it's quite amazing that we still find people who think that processed food and junk food is not bad for them. It's not good for you. It doesn't have any health benefits. I don't even like to call junk food, because I think it should just be called poison. So it's not food. It's not nutritious for your body. It won't help you to live, to survive, even less to thrive. And I think we all want to thrive. Avoid trans fats. Trans fats are fats that have been processed by humans, usually partially hydrogenated oils like soybean oil, sunflower oil, so, or margarines and other compounds that have been they insert hydrogen so that they become more solid at room temperature. So margarines are a good example of it. And also when you fry your food with those fats, it becomes really just poison. It's not even food. So drink plenty of water, and don't drink it with the meals. Drink it away from the meals, because our stomach needs to be acidic in order to have a proper digestion. If you drink water with your meal, you'll be diluting the acidity of your stomach, which means that you probably have more problems digesting food and even acid reflux. If you want to supplement or you're not having enough vegetables in your diet, you can have some vegetable juices that are very nutrient dense. And if possible, ideal, grow your own food. You can have a small garden in your backyard, or even inside your house, just for a few things that you can grow yourself. And always bring gratitude to your meals. And this was lost with time, being grateful, or just taking a moment before you start eating. Be grateful for the food you have in front of you, for this planet Earth that allows you to have that food, for the people that allow that food to reach to you. So just be grateful. And so how does a human meal look like? Because food can look very different ways. And I'm not going to go deep into what it means to eat animal food. I'm just going to tell you that if you are in the wild and if you see ripe fruit, you probably salivate and you feel like eating. But if you're in the same wild and see a cow in the pasture, you won't salivate and you won't feel like eating that cow. So that can give you a clue of what you as human being were designed to eat. A carnivore will salivate when it sees a cow, but we don't. So we're not supposed to eat animal products, but I'm not here to discuss that. So let's go to our plant power. So your food, your dish should be filled with dark leafy greens, things like spinach, and now I don't remember, but other dark leafy greens, even lettuce. It's not that dark, it's not so nutritious like spinach, but it's a good example, and a lot of people like it, so it's a good way to start introducing leafy greens into your diet. Cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, arugula. And then colorful vegetables like peppers, bell peppers, tomatoes, beets, whatever gives some color to your plate. So try to eat with all of the colors of the rainbow, because different colors also means different phytochemicals, and phytochemicals are chemicals that the plants have to fight their own aggressors. And when you eat them, they have the same benefits for you. So they will help you fight the aggressions from the outside world, and they serve also as antioxidants. Then eat plenty of sprouts. You can do sprouts from seeds, beans, and lentils. And a sprout is full of life. Like Darren was saying, when we sprout a nut, but just by putting it in water, its nutritional value is much higher, and it also lowers the acidity of the nuts. And when we're talking about sunflower sprouts or bean sprouts, lentil sprouts, it's the potential of life contained within a seed. It's becoming alive. So you're eating a living food and full of nutrition. For example, a broccoli sprout is estimated to have 300 times more nutrition than a broccoli when it's full grown. So sometimes if you have a hard time eating big salads, a lot of vegetables, just opt to introduce more sprouts. You get the same level of nutrition with less food. Microgreens, again, is just small cabbage, small arugula, small broccoli. Those are called microgreens. Seaweed, if you can. This is very common in Japanese culture to eat a lot of seaweed, and we see that before their food industry was completely disturbed by Western culture, they used to have very, very low rates of cancer and other chronic diseases, and seaweed is a major contributor. And then mushrooms, all types of mushrooms have many health benefits. So, and you don't need to eat a lot daily, about a third a cup of mushrooms daily, it's fine. And all of them are very beneficial. Just don't go for poisonous ones, because that wouldn't give a good result. Then add some healthy fats. And in Thailand, you have got a lot of good healthy fats. We have what's called non-essential fats, because non-essential, not because they're not good, but because your body produces them. So you have the saturated fats that are found in animal foods. That's why we produce our own saturated fats within our bodies, and they constitute our cells. But we still can get some, and it's good to get some from nature, and they occur naturally in coconuts, avocados, and tropical oils.